So you just heard our very catchy jingle. And for those of you who did not know, because many of you are like new listeners of our podcast, but our whole musical environment, both like the main theme, the Future Friday thing, and the Monday mailbag, all of it is all done by the same artist, Greg McPherson from Winnipeg, who's been doing shows since 1994, and so he is a longtime listener, and he's done that for us. So he's the reason why you got this thing in your ear twice a week, and sometimes you'll wake up in the morning singing the Basu Godin Notebook song, or that's basically, or you listen to us not because of what we have to say about the Montreal Canadiens, but only to hear our jingle.
Right. Which means you're not hearing this right now, which means that we've already lost you at this
That's
point.
it.
But, yeah.
That's it.
But
Yeah.
yeah, shout out to Greg again. We love the jingle. We actually did have a comment from a listener who said, "Oh, it's Friday and I wake up singing the jingle and I think it was my wife doesn't understand what I'm singing." So you can check out his work at gregmcpherson.com. That's Greg, MacPherson.com. Thanks again, Greg, for that great theme song that I love and I catch myself singing from time to time as well.
So Arpin, back in 1993, Jacques Demers went to Sainte-Anne-de-Beaupré church nearby, not too far from Quebec City, and prayed for the Montreal Canadiens to win the Stanley Cup. So he needed some divine help. This morning, Patrik Laine went to the Mont-Royal Oratorium and paid a visit to Oratory, yes, and paid a visit to Father Andre. Seemingly with the same motivation. And Patrik Laine, so in all likelihood, is going to be back in the Montreal Canadiens lineup on Tuesday night against the New York Islanders. Joshua Roy has been sent back to the Laval Rocket. It's a long time coming. What do you make of Patrik Laine finally making his Montreal Canadiens debut?
Has been a long time coming. I'm mildly surprised it wasn't on Sunday. I guess they wanted to make extra sure. Sunday morning, Laine took part in his final, I guess, individual tune-up. Got on the ice, skated around a bit. Did some work with Adam Nicholas, as he's been doing for weeks now. It's let's put the disclaimer out there. No one should expect Patrik Laine to come back and look like an all-star. Had this injury not even happened, you wouldn't expect him to come back and look like an all-star. It's been a long time since he's played that way. He's had a number of injuries. Obviously, the player assistance program, the mental challenges he's gone through, everything that he's hoping he's coming out of right now, which is what made the knee injury in the preseason so devastating, because he was so eager to start a new chapter on his life. And remember the video the Canadiens put out where they saw number 29 hanging from the rafters in the Bell Center, and he's with his fiance, and they're like, "Oh, there's number 29." He said, "Oh, I would have changed anyway. This is a new start for me." And so,
yeah,
that's
what it is. That's what it is, huh?
It's a new start, and so it's gonna need some time, but there's definitely he's gonna add an element to the Canadiens lineup, both on the power play and at even strength, that they lack. And one thing I've taken watching Laine skate is just how easily he gets shots off. Like he's a good bad ball hitter. You know, the way Vladimir Guerrero is such a good bad ball hitter.
Yeah.
He's a good bad puck shooter, if you will. Like it seems like, oftentimes Adam Nicholas kind of like intentionally puts pucks in his feet, put pucks kind of in odd areas for him to shoot from. And so a team that's been dying to increase their volume of shots, this particular skill will be very welcome. So
what you're telling me is that they don't need to have a centerman who knows how to pass the puck properly, because he'll be able to shoot nonetheless.
Right. So he'll wind up on a wing with Christian Dvorak. No, Spencer Christian Dvorak. Sorry, my bad. But no, it's like there's a lot. There's a lot of possibilities. Like on Friday in Newark, he was rotating in with Caulfield and Newhook. I think we mentioned it on Friday. That was the second time that he had done that at practice. Usually, that would suggest that there's no other reason to rotate that player in on that line if you don't intend on playing him there. But there's also the possibility that all the lines are going to get mixed up. But I would be intrigued to see if they go with a Caulfield Suzuki line combo right off the bat. Um, to kind of put him in the best position to succeed, and not ease him in, but here, you're going to go out with our two best offensive players. Now go out and produce some offense. So, which is honestly coming out of the weekend, that was, I mean, the Boston game notwithstanding, in the sense that the Boston game was kind of over before it got started in many ways, but Nick Suzuki and that line in general was looking pretty good heading into that game. I think Newhook was starting to find some usefulness, I guess, on that line. And his speed being like as a puck retriever was useful to the other two guys. And I felt like Nick is really starting to show some jump again. So
But Newhook went to the net a lot against
yeah,
the Rangers. That was really encouraging. I liked he had some snark to his game, and all three of them basically really worked between the dots offensively, and that made a difference. If you don't stay like only in the perimeter and you go inside the dots, good things are bound to happen. And it was striking not only from their line, but the whole line. The all four lines seemed to get the memo and play that way. Unfortunately, on Sunday in Boston, Newhook didn't have the same impact. Plus, he had that costly turnover that led to
yeah,
the Boston fifth
fifth.
goal.
Well, yeah, it's hard to keep count, but yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Yeah, because the previous ones were on a lot on Matheson and on Primo too. But I mean, um, Newhook is on a short leash to be able to stay on that top line.
Well, the thing about Newhook, and we discussed it on the last episode. I mean, if you have Newhook in a lesser role, suddenly Newhook's a lot better, right? He's better in that matchup. So, I do believe that Newhook was penciled into a top six role when the season began, or was about to begin, or before training camp began, I should say. And the ideal configuration was going to be Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Newhook, Doc, Laine. That was going to be the Canadiens' top six in all likelihood. Obviously, we never got to see that because even by the time Laine got injured, we hadn't really seen. Actually, in training camp, we never actually saw the version of the lineup that we were going to see going into the season. Because you remember that last game, they sat all their guys because of all the silliness with Ottawa and all that stupid stuff
Yeah,
that happened. And honestly, yeah, I think that kind of trickled into the start of the Canadian season. It really, they weren't properly prepared to start the season. I don't feel it wasn't only because of that
no,
Ottawa
no,
game. But
no,
I
but it
think
was
that
a shitty training camp.
it was a bad training camp. Yes. So, in any case, we'll see what happens on Tuesday morning at morning skate, where Line is lined up, if he's in fact playing, which I would be shocked if he wasn't. Because at a certain point, if a guy's healthy, he's healthy, and if it's just like I think the Canadiens have taken all the precautions in the world, and it's worth noting today is December 2nd, which we haven't mentioned yet of our episode is December 2nd episode, so he'll be making his return on December 3rd. The Canadiens announced on October 1st that he would be out 2 to 3 months. We all assumed it would be closer to three, but 2 months and 2 days after that announcement, Patrik Laine should be back in the lineup, which is another example of what's been a big change for the Canadiens, the department headed by Jim Ramsey, the athletic training department. They put out a date, they put out a timeline, and they are generally respecting their timelines on the long-term injuries. Um, which got me thinking about David Reinbacher because they said 5 to 6 months for him, and 5 months would put him at a March 1st return, which would give him a decent amount of runway to play a little bit, whether it's in Montreal or Laval, before the season is out. And if Laine is able to hit the low end of his timeline, maybe Reinbacher will be able to as well. Let's hope
Yeah,
for
but
his sake.
if he's
But
back on March 1st, it means that he could be papered and participate in the Laval Rocket playoffs. That'd be great for Reinbacher.
That would be great for Reinbacher. Absolutely. When's the trade deadline this year?
Seventh.
March 7th. Okay, so yeah, absolutely. Um, so another feather in Jim Ramsey's cap. Something that has been a problem forever for the Canadiens. Just these vague timelines of injury return. The Canadiens have been very precise with this. I remember Alex Newhook last year with his high ankle sprain came back right on time. David Savard had an injury earlier in the season, came back right on time. Pretty much every long-term injury the Canadiens have had, more or less, has come back in the amount of time they said it would need for them to come back. So that's a big improvement. And we'll see how long it does. Like, I don't know. I feel like this could actually be a pretty big turning point in the Canadian season because I know everyone's upset about the game in Boston. The Canadiens are upset about the game in Boston. There's a lot to not like about what happened in Boston. Like there's a lot of things. Okay. And the fact that they continuously have these games where they commit these costly turnovers that wind up in the back of their net is not a good thing for sure. But having said that, heading into that game in Boston, that game in New York was an excellent game for the Canadiens. And rightly or wrongly, to blame the officials for it, I hate blaming officials for anything. It's a loser's mentality. It's not the way to do it. The Canadiens were incensed over the officiating in that game, but they played pretty good hockey in that game.
For
Like that, I
sure.
think that's
Yeah.
why they were so angry, is that they felt they did everything to win that game and it was taken from them by the officials.